Hi, how's it going? Today I wanted to talk about the importance of checking the facts. Okay. This is a little bit of an impromptu video. Not in the sense that, I post one every week, but I wasn't planning on filming one today. So, in any case, there are many things or situations that come up in life where our brains like to fill in the gaps. Okay, and usually what's filling in those gaps or those assumptions that we jump to, and I did a video on assumptions, and I'll tag that one at the end of this video. But those assumptions or the conclusions that our brain jumps to, okay, they feel right because they're based on our internal belief systems. Okay. Now, if you watch me or you listen to my videos, you know that belief systems, however concrete they may feel for you, are not necessarily concrete. They feel that way because we feed them with our thinking. We tend to, the way, sorry. The way our brains work, okay, is that through repetition, we strengthen these neuron connections, these pathways in our brain, okay, that solidify patterns of behavior, solidify belief systems. That's how it all kind of works. It's through repetition, right? This is why when you practice something you do over and over, we gain not only muscle memory, depending on how externalized it is, but internally, we really strengthen these belief systems that we create based on either initially a fact or a perceived fact. All right, so if our brain is trying to fill in the gap with an idea, then what the brain is going to do is going to try and find patterns that support that belief system. And the more that we find, the more it's going to believe strongly that that assumption that we first jumped to is true. Okay? But this is the importance of being able to challenge those initial beliefs or information, because we want to make sure we're not just creating this myopic bubble, like this because it kind of makes sense that we're feeding a false narrative, okay? Or because enough people believe it and say it's true, then it must be, because I also don't want to be the outlier, or I don't want to be this or that, because we are social animals. None of us want to be the last one picked. None of us want to be the one who's not invited, right? Oh, some of us don't mind. Depending. But you get my point. Most people want to feel included. In fact, we build systems around inclusivity, okay? Because as human beings, we fundamentally know what it's like to be left out. And there's safety in numbers, okay? So sometimes we may get an inkling that something isn't true necessarily, but if everybody's saying it's true, we don't want to rock the boat. Okay? I'm generalizing here because not everyone falls under that, and it's not going to apply to every situation. There are times in my life where I'm like, I'm not going to rock the boat here, because we have to also be discerning what we're investing our energy into. Is that even worth rocking the boat? You know what I mean? Like, is there any, other than just exhausting yourself and trying to influence or help a situation, if everyone isn't, if people aren't in a place where they can hear you, what's the point in speaking in that sense? Okay, other than if you have to set a boundary for yourself or you feel it's the right thing to do. Okay, but keep in mind belief systems have everything to do with that. Okay? You have people out here unaliving people thinking it's the right thing to do. And as long as there's been people on this planet, that's been basically how this world has run, right? Look at the Crusades. If you're a biblical person, look at the first family. There's been, that type of behavior since the beginning of time. Okay? Because people have this amazing way of justifying their actions. Heck, we've seen atrocities happen and people try to justify it. Like, well, if they didn't say this, if they didn't say that, if they were a nicer person, even though they don't know the person, they're making judgment calls based on limited information. And I don't care how much is circulating in the internet. Half the stuff I see isn't even real. It's AI generated. So be discerning on what information you are feeding yourself to support belief systems, to support behaviors, to support anything that is tapping into your energy in some way. Whether it's making you fearful, whether it's making you angry, or even when it's making you feel really good. Is it doing so in a healthy way, or is it feeding your ego? And if it's feeding you in a healthy way, then those are the things we want to build more of in our life, right? Even hobbies, like when we have wonderful hobbies, that can become too much if we're not living a balanced life. Okay? I heard someone say, basically, I have too many hobbies, they're work now. And we can all kind of relate to that to some degree, right? How do you keep things fresh? And how do you keep things in flow for you so that you can tap into these different things to build that resilience, to build that happiness for yourself, to build balance? Okay? Because we live in kind of a world right now that's always throwing us off balance, or trying to anyway. Whether it's distractions in the news, whether it's, our cell phones, whether it's Bluetooth devices or other things that we may not see, but it's still impacting our energy, still impacting us. We take a lot of things out of sight for granted. Like we see wires and we know that that's how we have electricity, and we believe in electricity because we experience electricity, but we don't, most of us, all right, most of us don't look into it further. Okay? So there's a lot more to be seen in the mundane than people often give credit to. And a lot of things can impact you, for sure. So pay attention to those things, because those are the things in your here and now, in your actual physical surroundings that you can have impact on. Okay? Now I'm talking to the general person here. People like me. I'm not out here the queen of any country here or any, that's just, no. I'm just out here trying to live my best life, right? And realizing that I have more power over that than I once thought. Okay? So whether it's external distractions that are outside of your, a small circle, if you will, or if it's external distractions that's in your small circle, okay? So maybe you've had a history. Welcome to Earth, okay? Nobody's out here being perfect. Okay, we've all made mistakes. That's part of learning. I've shared this before. I remember when my son was in 3rd grade and I went to his parent-teacher conference, and there was this awesome sign on the wall that said, "Mistakes are proof we're learning." And I love that. I sometimes tweak it a little bit, but I absolutely love that because it's so fundamentally human and it's so true, and it stands for everybody. If we're not making mistakes, we're not learning. Okay? Yeah, sometimes we get really lucky and get it right the first time. Super cool. However, it's rare. Okay? We usually make mistakes, and that's why you don't want to think something out of existence. If you have an idea or an inspiration, you take inspired action, and boom, you'll make mistakes. Yes, but at least you get the ball rolling, right? If you wait until something's perfect, you're probably never going to experience it because there's no such thing. Perfect is a construct, it's a measurement tool, it's not a reality. Okay, so don't lose yourself in illusions. Ground yourself in the here and now, be present, and pay attention to how situations make you feel, how people make you feel, how you make you feel. Because nobody talks to you more than yourself. So if you find that you're taking other people's, verbiage, if they're talking down to you or they're being mean or they're trying to bully in some way, okay, and you're taking that to heart and seeing yourself as less than or unworthy, you got to make sure that you're challenging that. This is part of checking the facts, okay? If someone's threatening you or someone is, I know that took a turn, but so one part is the assumptions where we check the facts. Like how much of that is really real? How much of that is my belief systems? And then I know that, okay, I can do the side work on my belief systems if I know I have a belief system that's not serving me. Sometimes it's people giving us false information, okay? I think that's one of the, well, I shouldn't say rare because we see it all the time. Like I just said, a lot of the stuff you see online or a lot of the stuff, I always say be careful if people are projecting onto you, which means, this is why I don't really watch the news because they're all emotional manipulators, okay? For the most part. That's an overgeneralization. However, anyone that's trying to push emotions onto me to justify their belief system, that's usually a red flag for me. Okay? I want facts. I don't need you to color them for me. I don't need you to downplay them or upplay them. Okay? I just want the facts. That's all I want. That's not what we usually get. Okay? So be mindful. How does that impact how you feel? Well, the same thing can happen in our intimate relationships. If someone is projecting onto you, telling you, you can't do this because of this, or this is what's going to happen, or this, that you can't, whatever. Eesh. I don't like anyone who tries to control. Sometimes I keep my mouth shut and be like, all right, I'll let them believe that they have the slightest bit of control, but nobody controls anybody unless the person that they're trying to control gives them that power, okay? One of the ways you take power back is to check the facts. And that has never been easier before in this world than it is right now with AI and other things, okay? Now, again, I guess it depends on what you're checking. But if you're checking like legal facts, call a lawyer. Or ask AI to get guidance, what's the next step in this, and then you proceed. But don't ever take anyone's word for it, especially if they're an emotional manipulator. If in order to get you on their team, they have to tap into your emotions. Now, emotions serve us, for sure. but they can also be used against us if we're not thinking clearly. Wisdom is a combination of logic and emotion. It's not one or the other. Too much logic can be cold and cutting. Too much emotion can be, well, naive, manipulative, and ignorant in some ways. Okay? Because if you're not paying attention to truth or facts, and you're just putting emotion as the deciding factor, then you're probably not making smart choices. You're probably not. Because smart is logic, right? So emotion has its place, and it's important because we don't want to be too much in the logic and not in our how we feel, or how am I making other people feel, or how are they making me feel. That's important too. So it's balance, right? It's balance between the two. But check the facts. Don't just assume that what you're hearing is true, especially if it makes you feel controlled, manipulated, or stuck in any way. And that can play out in so many different scenarios. But I feel like someone needed to hear that. Okay? Sometimes there will be truth. The best lies have truth woven into them. Okay? Most things in life are not all or nothing. Most. Okay? So be mindful of those types of distortions if they're taking hold. Like, it's either this or that. Well, usually there's other options. We just have to be open to them and willing to look into them. Okay? But checking the facts, and sometimes we don't, like, we can check, but maybe the answer isn't clear. Well, that's where other things, like tapping into our, how does this truly make me feel, can help with determining the outcome and things like that. And ultimately, you deserve to be happy. So if that choice or whatever it is does not make you happy, it's up to you whether you're going to suffer through it or not. Okay. What is the saying? I just said this the other day. Pain is inevitable on this planet. Suffering is optional. Usually when we're suffering, it's because we're resisting in some way the flow of where we're meant to go or whatever. And that's a whole nother rabbit hole of fate and things like that. And that there's only so much with that, in my opinion, for what it's worth. But, you know, you do look into your own things. What intrigued you? Research. I mean, we live in a time now where just saying I'm researching this, all of a sudden, oh, you must be a conspiracy theorist. I'm sorry. I'm not. I find it childish and funny when people call people names. Because, I mean, we're like whole adults here. At least anyone who's watching this, hopefully, is an adult, right? So calling people names is very childish and usually a deflection. Because it's like, well, I don't have anything intelligent to say and I'm really emotional, so I'm just going to call you a name. Not cool, but entertaining at times. Or it can be, anyway, in the sense that it can make you laugh. Don't do that to yourself or to others. Energy is long-lasting. Once it's sparked and put out there, it doesn't just diminish, especially in this day and age. You know, it's like I tell my kids, don't take inappropriate pictures with your camera, because whether you delete them or not, they're out there in the ethers forever. Be discerning. Same with emails, same with tweets and everything else, or posts. People put them out there and then they delete them because, oh, I got to rethink this. And that's okay. Mistakes are proof we're trying, proof we're learning. But they never truly go away. Someone with enough access, someone with enough intelligence can always retrieve them. Just know that. So, be discerning, be mindful, be self-accountable with what you put out into the universe, as well as self-accountable as to what you are entertaining. Is this serving me? Is this serving the highest good of all? Or is this just, I don't know, instant gratification, ego? Like I said, ego has its place, but it's not usually, we don't usually want it in the driver's seat. We need to take in the whole picture. All right. I guess that's it. I might actually redo this. I don't know. But if you're seeing it, I didn't. I decided to go with it. Have a good day. Talk soon.